Okay. We have one side. Let me see. Sanhedrin, and we are Yud Hey. I mean Yud Yud Hey. You shall surely smite, etc. A donkey train or a camel caravan which passes from place to place saves it. Destroy it and all that is in it. From here they derive that the possessions of the righteous which are in it are forfeit, while those others outside are saved. Those are the wicked, whether within or without, are forfeit. As it is stated, in all of its spoils you shall gather into the plaza. If it has no plaza, then equal. If its plaza is outside, they bring it in. And you shall burn the town and its spoils completely to Hashem your guard. Its spoils, not the spoils of heaven. From here they derive that the Hekdesh objects in it are redeemed. The Trumas are left to rot, and the Maisa Sheni and the Holy Scriptures must be buried. Completely to Hashem your guard, said Red Shimon. The Holy One, blessed is he, said, if you will carry out the judgment of the apostate town, it is as if you bring a burnt offering before me, and it shall be in a mound forever, and it may not be rebuilt at all. It may not even be made into a garden or orchard. And these are the words of Rosi Hagili. Rabbi Akiva says it may never be rebuilt. It may be rebuilt to what it was, but it may be made into gardens and orchards. And nothing of the banned matter shall stick to your hand. For as long as the wicked are in the world, there is anger in the world. When the wicked perish from the world, anger disappears from the world. I remember somewhere, and I think it's Tanakh, that there's somewhere there was a town, and they were going to rebuild it, or they weren't. There was something.
Yericho. You're thinking of
Yericho? I thought it was
Yericho. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and the guy who rebuilt it lost all of his children. The first one died on the day that he started the work, and his last one died on the day that he finished.
That's right. Now I remember. Okay. There are the ones who are strangled, one who writes his father or mother, or one who kidnaps a Jew, an elder who rebels against the word of court, a false prophet, one who prophesies in the name of the false god, one who commits adultery. The Zomamin witnesses are the daughter of a Kohen, and the man who cohabitated with her. One who strikes his father or mother is not liable unless he makes a bruise. This is the stringency of one who curses over one who strikes. One who curses his parents after their death is liable, whereas one who strikes them after their death is exempt. One who kidnaps a Jew is not liable unless he takes him into his possessions. Rabbi Yehuda says, unless he brings him into his possessions and makes use of him, as it is stated, and he made use of him and sold him. If one kidnaps his son, Rabbi Mishrael, the son of Rabbi Yochanan ben Brokus, renders him liable, but the B'Kamim exempt him. If he kidnaps someone who is half slave and half free, Rabbi Yehuda renders him liable, but the B'Kamim exempt him.
Okay. Okay. Zakin Mamre. So the Zakin Mamre, this is the rebellious elder. Alpi Basin, where he rebels against the words of the Basin. So when there is something that you don't know the halacha for, and the pasuk carries on, it's not spelled out all in the Mishnah, but basically you've got to become to Alisa el Makom, you've got to get up and go to the place that Hashem has chosen. And you come to the Kohanim, the Leviim, to the judge that will be in those days, and they'll do the drasha, and they'll tell you what the mishpat, and you must do what they do from their place. You're small, you're not allowed to deviate from what they tell you, right or left. Okay. But if somebody goes willfully against what they say, or against the judge, and that person must die. Okay, that's a death penalty for violating the psak of the Great Sanhedrin. Okay, so that's just filling in the rest of the psukim that aren't written in the Mishnah. Shlosha batidin. So here's the procedure. There were 3 basins in the Harabais. Okay. Echad Yoshev al Pesach Harabais. One was at the entrance of Harabais. Echad Yoshev al Pesach Azara. One at the entrance to the Azara. Echad Yoshev b'Lishkas Hagazis, and the one that sat in the chamber of hewn stone. Ba'im lazesh al Pesach Harabais. So let's say you've got an argument between various chachamim outside, in the outlying areas of Eretz Yisrael. and they can't come to agreement about what the halacha is. So they'll come to Harabais. They'll come to the first based in the that's at the entrance of Harabais. And it's like kach darashti v'kach darash chaverai. This is I said the halacha is A. My chaverim said the halacha is B. Kach limadati v'kach limdu chaverai. Or this is what I taught. This is what they taught. Im shamu. So now the judges at the lishka at the Harabais, at the entrance of Harabais, if they've heard the halacha, they say, yeah, we know this case. Then they say, yeah, the halacha is whatever it is. Okay, and they pass it over there. But if they don't know the halacha, they say, Taka, that's a good question, we don't know. Or if they say we do know the halacha, but one of the arguing parties says, I don't accept what you're saying, I want to escalate this, they can take it higher. Okay. And they go to the next level higher of based in. Okay, and repeat the process. So once again, im shamu. So these are more senior judges. They say if they know the halacha, then they'll say it. Im lav, and if not, in other words, either if they don't know the halacha, or if one of the parties just doesn't want to accept their judgment, then they all go up to the lishkas hagazis, and this is where the buck stops. Okay. Because from this place where Hashem will choose. Okay, so now, one way or another, the Sanhedrin Gadol will pass the halacha. Okay, and this is now binding on all of Israel. So now the Zaken goes back to his city. And he carries on teaching. And he carries on teaching the way he used to teach. Okay. Now, teaching actually is not the issue. He's patur for that. Even though the Sanhedrin told one way, but he just teaches a different way. That's okay. But if he tells somebody to act differently, he tells somebody the halacha is this. You should the Sanhedrin Hagadol said this is kosher, but I'm telling you it's treif, or vice versa, and it's not. So if he tells somebody to throw out the chicken because it's treif, okay, now he's chayav. He's now undermines the psak of the Sanhedrin Hagadol. The person who yaseh bezadon. So it's got to be that he does, or that he makes other people do. Okay, his chiyuv is only when he tells people to do something differently based on his psak versus the Sanhedrin Hagadol. Okay. Talmid shehora la'asos patur. However, if he's just a stam yeshiva bacher who's like got the chutzpah to say that he thinks he knows better than the Sanhedrin Hagadol, he's patur. Because nobody's going to listen to him anyway. He's not. Who is he? He's a nobody. So the fact that he's not allowed to paskin, and he nonetheless paskins, that actually is that's his loophole that he gets off the hook because he's not in the parsha, but somebody who's actually got a respectable level, he's the kind of person who people would listen to, and that undermines the Sanhedrin, and he gets the connect. Okay, so it turns out there's a stringency. So there's a stringency with rabbinic commands that you don't find with Torah commands, or even with things that are Torah sheba'al peh over Torah shebektav. Ha'omer ein tefillin. If somebody says there's no such thing as tefillin, you don't have to wear tefillin, even though the Sanhedrin Hagadol has ruled or whatever, kadei la'avor al divrei Torah, in order to violate something that's explicitly written in the Torah. Right? It says nobody's going to listen to this guy. He's obviously talking nonsense because people know Torah shebichtav. So he's patur. Okay. However, if he says there are 5 compartments in the Shel Rosh, now that's not written in the Torah anywhere. Of course, it's a mitzvah in the Torah. So it says divrei sofrim, that's not literally so. I mean, it's just halacha l'moshe misina, which is expounded by the rabbis. Okay, but that's something that people might get confused with because it's not explicitly written in the Torah, and therefore he would be chayav for that. Okay, so that's it turns out that there's that ironically there's that stringency with Torah Shebal Peh that's not with Torah Shebet. Mishna Dalet ein memesin also lo b'beistin shebe'ira v'lo b'beistin shebeyavne. So ela ma'alin also lebeistin hagadol shebeyerushalayim. So this is talking about, first of all, it can only be talking about when you had a Sanhedrin in Yerushalayim. So if he was sentenced to death for violating this, being a zaken mamre. So even though he can be sentenced anywhere, he doesn't get executed in his town. He has to be brought to Yerushalayim. Okay, and even if we're talking about a case where the Sanhedrin Agadol had paskened in Yerushalayim and then they were exiled to Yavne, and he was sentenced to death in Yavne. Even they still bring him back to Yerushalayim. Okay, and they keep him. Okay, and they keep him there until it's time for Yom Tov, Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot. So people will be coming into Yerushalayim. And they kill him then during Chol HaMoed, or the day after Shavuos. So Rabbi Akiva says it's because we've got the passage that says all of the Am will hear and they'll fear and they won't carry on doing such a thing. So this is meant to strike fear in the hearts of people, that they shouldn't rebel against the Sanhedrin. Says Rabbi Akiva, so therefore they can delay his execution by up to 6 months. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Ein ma'anin es dino shel zeh. Nope, says Rabbi Yehuda, we do not delay execution. Just like any other death penalty, there's no delay at all. They kill him immediately, that's even in his home city. Oh no. It's a bigger pardon. Even Rabbi Yehuda agrees that they take him to Yerushalayim to execute him, but nonetheless they do execute him as soon as possible. So what do you do with Kol Ha'am Yishmeu V'Yirau? Because okay, because it doesn't say by Yiruham that they should see. That says by Yishmael. They just need to hear. They don't need to be witnesses. They just need to hear that this happened. So they send letters all around the country to say Ish Ploni ben Ish Ploni mischayev misa b'beis din, that this Rabbi so and so rebelled against the Beis Din and he had to be executed. And they'll say, "Whoa, Rabbi so and so was executed." Like, that's it's a big deal. It's not like you hear about some gutter snipe who's it was always a low life and they got him finally. Yeah, this is like a respectable rabbi, and he's been executed. That's going to strike something into into people's hearts.
The purpose for them being the person to be executed to Yerushalayim is because they want it close to them.
I think that must be it must be because of the pasuk that let's just read the pasuk again.
It says, "And the entire nation shall hear and shall fear, and they shall no longer be sin willfully." The entire nation comes when it's a regal.
Yeah, that's talking about Rabbi Akiva.
Right.
So Rabbi Akiva's opinion is that he has to be executed in front of all the people who are coming for the regel. So I'm just wondering why would Rabbi Yehuda want him to be brought to Yerushalayim to be executed? And I'm reading this from Kahati's commentary that even he's implying that Rabbi Yehuda would agree that he has to be brought to Yerushalayim, but I don't see any support for that. What does the article say about Rabbi Yehuda's opinion?
Here, there's a Gemara 89a. I don't know which it says, since the Torah specifies only that the masses hear of his execution, not that they should see it, there is no basis for prolonging his agony and by delaying his punishment. This is the reason why all executions are conducted immediately after the conviction. So they want to hear about it.
Does it say anything about Rabbi Yehuda saying that he has to be executed in Yerushalayim?
I don't see no, I don't see anything about that.
Okay, I'm actually going to jump into Safaria and see if there's any commentary that says anything on this particular point, because that's a little strange. I mean, I don't understand why Rabbi Yehuda would say this. Let's see, we're in Yud Aleph Daled. Yud Aleph Daled. Yeah. Okay, Hashem. Batinura, what does Batinura say? No. Rambam. No, not him. This was Yontel. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Emanim. No, there's no. Yeah, so Tosfos Yom Tov brings the Gemara that you mentioned over there.
It seems to be that he gets executed and they send messengers out immediately, and so everybody hears about it, but they don't all see it.
Yeah.
That's though. The messengers must also specify the nature of the crime.
Yeah, I'm just reading here. There's another commentary over here that's doesn't actually say whose commentary. It's just an English commentary over here on Zafaria, which says that according to Rabbi Akiva, the execution must take place at the High Court where it will receive the most exposure. Rabbi Yehuda says you don't need to delay, which means to me that he doesn't even have to come to Yerushalayim, and that kind of makes sense. I'm not sure where Kahati gets that he has to.
A convicted person doesn't have to even go to Yerushalayim, is what they're saying.
Yeah, I'm inclined to say that's not the shot. Okay, then let's go back to Chazaras. We're in Zion Ches.
Zion. One who desecrates Shabbos is with something that which is punishable by karas, if done intentionally, and obligates a sin offering if it's done b'shogeg. One who curses his father or mother is not liable unless he curses them with the name of Hashem. If he cursed them with a secondary name, Reb Meir holds him liable, but the Chachamim acquit him. One who cohabitates with a betrothed Na'ara is not liable unless she is a Na'ara, a virgin, betrothed, and still in her father's house. If two men cohabitated with her, the first is stoned, the second is strangled. The instigator to idolatry is a common person who instigates a common person. He says to him, this is the deity in such and such a place. Thus it eats, thus it drinks, thus it benefits, thus it does harm. We do not conceal witnesses to entrap anyone punishable by death according to the Torah law, except for this one. If he spoke to two and they are his witnesses, they bring him to court and stone him. If he spoke to one, he says, I have friends who desire this. If he is clever and says that he is unable to speak before them, they conceal witnesses behind the partition. And he says to them, say that which you say to me in private. The other says to him, in which he replies, how can we abandon our God in heaven and go and worship wood and stones? If he retracts, it is good. If he says, this is our obligation, it is proper for us, then standing behind the partition, bring him to court and stone him. Included in this is anyone who says, I shall serve, I shall go and serve, let us go and serve. I shall slaughter an offering, I shall go and slaughter an offering, let us go and slaughter an offering. I shall burn an offering, I shall go and burn an offering, and let us go and burn an offering. I shall pour a libation, I shall go and pour a libation, let us go and pour a libation. I shall bow down, I shall go and bow down, let us go and bow down. One who leads astray is one who says, let us go and serve idols. The sorcerer who performs a deed is liable, but not
that's three.
Okay, all right. It was interesting last night we were doing in Makos, a section of the Gemara where...
Speaking of Makos, we're starting Makos tomorrow.
Okay, thanks. We get to the section that starts it's us this whole thing about which is worse, stoning or beheading, and which one are we going to do, and also it was good because we had done this, we're talking about
right. Yeah.
so it's good. Okay.
Right, the argument, and who are the protagonists in the argument? Well, who's the one who's the Bas Yachid who disagrees with Chachamim?
I'm sorry, I don't remember.
Okay,
I get a little bit.
it's Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon switches the order of Skila and Streifa and Herrig and Pennick.
I get a little bit. I don't get all of it. Okay. We are on A base. One who sells a donkey but has not sold its equipment. Nachum the Mede says he has sold its equipment. Rabbi Yehuda says sometimes they are sold and sometimes they are not sold. How so? If the donkey was in front of him and his equipment was on it, and he said to him, "Sell me this donkey of yours, its equipment is sold." But if he said, "This is your donkey," its equipment is not sold. One who sells a donkey has sold a foal. If he sold a cow, he has not sold his calf. If he has sold a dung heap, he has sold its manure. If he sold a pit, he has sold its water. If he sold a beehive, he has sold the beeves. And if he sold the dovecote, he has sold the doves. One who buys a production of a dovecote from another must allow the first brace to fly. If he bought the production of a beehive, he takes 3 swarms and then alternates. If he bought honeycombs, he must leave 2 combs. If he bought olive trees to cut, he must leave 2 branches. If one who buys 2 trees in the field of another has not acquired any land, and Reb Meir says he has acquired land. If they grew, he may not trim them. Whatever grows from the trunk belongs to him from the roots to the owner of the land, and if they died, the land is not his. If he brought 3, he has also acquired land, and if they grew, he may trim them. Whatever grows from this trunk and the roots belong to him, and they tied the land to his. Okay. More. No. And also in the Gemara we were doing, there also talks about Shvius and the power of the land and all. Very interesting. But the third time we do this, I should get the names all together.
Okay, Gittin.
Okay, Gittin. In the case of 2 Gittin whose texts are alongside each other, and the 2 Hebrew witnesses extend from beneath this one to beneath that one, 2 Greek witnesses extend from beneath this one to beneath that one. This one, and that which the first witnesses are read is valid. The Hebrew witnesses and 1 Greek witnesses, 1 Hebrew witness and 1 Greek witness extend from beneath this one to beneath this one. They are both valid. I'm sorry, they're both void. If one let off the part of the get and wrote on it in the second column, and the witnesses are at the bottom, it is valid. If the witnesses signed at the top of the page, on the side or the back of the open, it is void. If the top of this one was attached to the top of that one, to this one, and the witnesses are in between, they are both void. If at the end of this one was attached to the end of this one, and the witnesses are in between, and with which the witnesses are read, is valid. If the top of the one was attached to the bottom of this one, and the witnesses are in between, and that which the witnesses are read are at its end, is valid. A get whose writing is in Hebrew and whose witnesses are in Greek and its witnesses in Hebrew, 1 witness in Hebrew, 1 witness in Greek, for one which has the writing of the scribe and a witness is valid. A signature which reads so-and-so witness is valid, which reads the son of so-and-so witness is valid. If he wrote so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, and he did not write witness, it is valid. And this is what the pure-minded of Yerushalayim used to do. If he wrote his surname or her surname, it's valid. A get drawn up under coercion is by a Jew, it is valid, but by a Gentile, it's void. And they beat him through the Gentiles say, until the Gentiles say, do as the Jews say to you, and it's valid. Okay.
Right, so, and also tomorrow we're going to start Kiddushin.
Kiddushin and Makos. Well, what else should come after getting but Kiddushin? So, Okay, Aleph Zion. Beit Shammai says spices must be crushed, may be crushed on Yom Tov with a wooden pestle, but salt should be crushed with a flask or with a wooden mixing spoon. Beit Hillel says spices may be crushed in the usual manner with a stone pestle, and salt should be crushed with a wooden pestle. One who separates pulse on Yom Tov, Beit Shammai says he must separate the edible parts and eat. Beit Hillel says he may separate in his usual manner into his lap, into a basket, or into a large plate, but not on a board, not with a fine sieve, and not with a coarse sieve. Rabbi Gamaliel says he must also rinse the pulse and skim the chaff. Beit Shammai says we may not send presents on Yom Tov with the exception of ready portions, and Beit Hillel says we may send domesticated animals, beasts or fowl, whether alive or slaughtered. We may send wines, oil, flowers, and pulse, but not grain. And Reb Shimon said permits grain to the end to be sent.
That was it. Okay. Brachos? Tesnei.
Oh, Peah. Peah, you're doing breakfast first.
First brachas, yeah.
Okay. One is obliged. One is obliged to bless for the evil. Just as one blesses for the good, since it is said, "And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul, and with all your life and with all your might, and all your heart and with both the inclinations, the good, the bad, and with all your life, even at the cost of your life, and with all your might, with all your material possessions." Another interpretation of "with all your might," whatever the treatment God metes out to you, thank Him very much, very much. One should avoid showing disrespect in the direction of the Eastern Gate, because it is in this direction the line with the Holy of Holies. One may not enter the Temple Mount with a stick, with his shoes, with his wallet, and with dust on his feet, and nor may one make a shortcut to spit. All the concluding formulas of the bracha and the temple included in the saying of forever. When the heretics caught corruptly and said there is only one world, they instituted that they should say from everlasting to everlasting. They also ordained the people should give one another with the use of the name, as it is said, "And behold, Boaz came from Bethlehem and said to the reapers, the Lord be with you." And they replied, "The Lord bless you." And it says, "God be with you, mighty man of valor." And it says, despise your mother when she is old.
Do not.
So, yeah, I know that was
You don't, yeah.
Despise not your mother when she is old. And it says it is time to act for the Lord, that you have made void your Torah. And Nathan says they have made void your Torah because it is the time to act for the Lord.
Okay. Peah.
They finished. Wow. Peah. These things have no measure. The corner, the first fruits, the rayon, deeds of loving kindness and study of the Torah. These are the things of the fruits of which man enjoys in this world, and the principle remains for him in the world to come. The honoring of one's father and mother, and the deeds of loving kindness, and making peace between man and his fellow, and the study of Torah is equal to all of them. One should not give Peah on less than 60. And even though they said Peah has no measure, everything depends on the size of the field and the number of the poor, and according to the extent of the crops.
Right. So basically, what this Mishna has just taught us is that Torah, there's no shear. You can give one stalk for Peah and that's it, and you've done the mitzvah. You can give a whole lot for Peah and you've done the mitzvah. But Chachamim made a shear of minimum of 1/60th for Peah, to make sure that you actually got the intention of making sure the poor had something to eat.
Okay. And base hay.
Yeah.
The women's courtyard was 135 amos in length and 135 amos in width, and there are 4 chambers at its 4 corners, each with a length of 40 amos. These chambers were not roofed, and that is how they are destined to be. For it is stated, "The angel brought me out into the outer courtyard and led me past the 4 corners of the courtyard, and behold, an enclosure at one corner of the courtyard, an enclosure of one corner of the courtyard, and the 4 corners of the courtyard there were enclosures that were kitaras." And the term kitaras denotes nothing other than the fact that they were unroofed. And what were their functions? The southeast corner, it was the chamber of the Netzerim. But there, the Netzerim would cook their shlomim.
Nazirim, right, Nazir.
Nazirim. But there, the Nazirim would cook their shlomim offerings and shave their head and cast the shorn hair beneath the cauldron. The northeastern chamber was the chamber of the wood for the Kohanim, who were physically blemished, would sort out the wormy pieces of wood, and any pieces of wood in which a worm was found was disqualified from being used upon the altar. The northwestern chamber is the chamber of the Mitzvah. Regarding the southwest chamber, the Rebbe Eliezer ben Yaakov said, "I forgot what function it served." Abba Shaul says they used to place wine and oil there, and it was called the chamber of housing the oils. It was originally smooth, and they surrounded it with a balcony so that the women should watch from above and the men from below, so that they should not be intermingled. And 15 steps extended from within the courtyard, women's courtyard, to the Israelites' courtyard, corresponding to the 15 songs of ascent that are found in Psalms. The one, these steps are the leading ones upon which the steps of the leading ones are the song. The 15 steps were not straight; they were rounded like half a circular threshing floor. And there were chambers beneath the Israelites' courtyard, which were open to the women's courtyard. There the Levites would place harps, lyres, cymbals, and all the musical instruments. The Israelites' courtyard was 135 amos in length, by 11 amos in width. And similarly, the Kohan's courtyard was 135 amos in length, by 7 amos in width. And the ends of the beam separated between the Israelites' courtyard and the Kohanim's courtyard. Eliezer ben Yaakov says there was a step there, 1 amah high. and the platform rested upon it. And in the platform there were 3 steps, each with a height of a half an amma. It is found that the Kohen's courtyard is higher than the Israelites' courtyard by 2.5 amma. The entire courtyard was 187 amma in length and 135 amma in width, and there were 13 prostrations there. Abba Yosef ben Canaan says, corresponding to the 13 gateways of the courtyard. The southern gateway is adjacent to the west, the upper gate, kindling gate, the upper gate of the firstborns, and the water gate. And why was it called the water gate? Because they would bring in a flask of water for libation during Sukkot. Of Eliezer ben Yaakov says, and there were the streams of water as wide as which issues from a flask, and in the future will merge from underneath the threshold of the temple. And opposite the southern gateways is in the north, adjacent to the west, the gate of Yekonia, the gate of the offering, the women's gate, the gate of the sword. And why it was called the gate of the Yekonia? Because through it Yekonia exited the courtyard when he was exiled. In the east, there was Nicanor gate, and the Nicanor gate had 2 minor doorways, one to the right, one to the left, and there were 2 gateways in the west that did not have a name.
One more.
Right.
It's a long Mishnah today.
The altar was 34 amos by 32 amos, descending 1 amos and went inward. 1 amma this tier was the base. 1 amma went inward, 1 amma this tier was the base. It is found to be 30 by 30 amot. It ascended 5 amot and went inward toward 1 amot. This tier was the ledge. It is found to be 28 by 28 amot, and the space for the horns measured an amot on this side and an amot on that side. It is found to be 26 by 26 amos, and the space for the feet of the Kohen walking measured an amot on this side and an amot on that side. It is found to be 24 by 24 amos, and this is the space for the pyre. Rabbi Yossi originally the altar was only 28 by 28. It is narrowed and ascended in the same manner that it was found until it is found that the space for the pyre measured only 20 by 20. But when the exiles ascended, they added to the altar 4 amos on the south, 4 on the west, in the shape of a gamma. It is stated that the hearth area is 12 amot long by 12 wide, square. It might be thought that the space of the pyre was only 12 by 12. And the verse states that it has 4 quadrants. It teaches that it is from the center point of the altar, and that the verse is measuring 12 amot in its directions. And a line of red circled the altar at the halfway point of the height to separate between the upper bloods and the lower bloods. And the base traveled the entire north side and the entire west side of the altar and consumes 1 amma in the south and 1 amma in the west, in the east.
Okay.
This was one thing I wanted to see here. I saw the wood. Any piece of wood. Okay, okay, I got it. Okay.
All right. We
All
are
right.
back.
Have a great day. Enjoy. I will see you tomorrow. You'll probably be
Actually, now mentioning tomorrow. Let me just stop